Welcome to the deep dive. We grab stacks of sources, research, all that good stuff, and try to pull out the most important nuggets for you.
We dive deep so you don't have to.
Exactly. And today, we're plunging into a story you probably think you know. But I promise, we're about to look at it from an angle that really changes things. We all know the story of the Buddha, right? The prince who gave up everything, his palace, his family, all the luxury to go find enlightenment. It's like one of history's biggest spiritual journeys.
Absolutely iconic.
But while he was off meditating under the Bodhi tree,
Yeah.
what about the woman he left behind? His wife, Yasodhara.
Yeah.
I mean, her life looked perfect on the surface.
Yeah.
Royal palace, handsome prince husband, a beautiful baby boy, everything you could possibly want in ancient India.
The dream life, supposedly.
Right. Then, one morning, she wakes up and he's just gone,
Yeah.
vanished. Her baby's in the next room, the servants are whispering. She has no idea if her husband's dead or captured or if he just decided, she wasn't worth staying for.
The sheer confusion, the panic, the public shame, it's almost impossible to grasp fully.
Totally unfathomable.
And for centuries, really, that's been the simple story. Yasodhara, the abandoned wife,
Yeah.
a footnote.
Pretty much.
But our mission today is to really challenge that. What if the woman who was seemingly left behind didn't just, survive it?
What if she did more?
Exactly. What if she took that heartbreak and turned it into her own path to enlightenment, became this revolutionary spiritual leader herself, quietly changing spirituality forever?
Okay, I'm hooked.
This deep dive is all about uncovering that incredible, often untold story of Yasodhara.
I have a feeling that by the end of this, how you think about the Buddha's journey, maybe even spiritual awakening itself, it's going to shift.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's hear it.
So the story, it actually starts way before Siddhartha and Yasodhara were even born. We're talking ancient India, maybe around 500 BC, near the border of what's now India and Nepal.
That's right. And what's really fascinating is that some ancient Buddhist texts, they suggest their connection wasn't just random. It was this deep spiritual bond woven across lifetimes.
It's across lifetimes, wow.
Yeah, traditional lore paints this picture of her being destined to be his spiritual counterpart, not just, his wife.
So more than just a royal marriage.
Much more. There's this one ancient text, the Collective Sutra of the Buddha's Past Acts. It actually tells a story from a previous life. Yasodhara offered lotus flowers to a previous Buddha, Dipankara Buddha, and made this powerful wish, this resolution to be Siddhartha's partner in future lives, specifically to support his path. So they're meeting, maybe not coincidence, but destiny, part of a bigger spiritual plan.
That adds a whole different layer. And Yasodhara herself, she wasn't your typical passive princess, was she?
Not at all. She was born into the same royal family, the Shakya clan, daughter of King Supa Buddha and Queen Amita. And the sources describe her as, brilliant, sharp, intelligent, deeply empathetic.
So she could hold her own.
Absolutely. In political discussions, philosophical debates, she wasn't just waiting for a prince. She had her own mind, her own substance.
Okay, so what about their wedding? I imagine it was quite the event.
Oh, definitely. The Lalitavistara Sutra describes it as this incredibly grand affair, royal spectacle. But here's a detail that often gets skipped.
What's that?
Siddhartha had to prove himself. There were contests, archery, sword fighting, intellectual challenges against other princes vying for her hand.
So he had to compete for her.
Yes. But crucially, she wasn't just a prize being awarded. The texts imply she was actively involved in choosing him too. It shows her agency, even back then.
That's important. And she had other names too, right?
She did. It reflects her different roles, maybe different traditions remembering her. Padakakana in Pali, Padrakatiyani in Sanskrit, sometimes Bimba Devi, and maybe most touchingly, Rahula Mata, mother of Rahula.
Mother of Rahula. That one hits differently knowing what comes next.
It really does. Each name just hints at this complex woman who couldn't be easily defined.
So they get married. Palace life seems perfect. Gold everywhere, servants, 3 different palaces for the seasons. Sounds amazing.
Like a fairy tale.
And then their son, Rahula, is born. It really seems like the happy ending is all locked in.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But Yasodhara, she was perceptive. She sensed something wasn't quite right beneath all that luxury.
She saw cracks in the facade.
In a way, she wasn't just, enjoying the comforts. She was watching Siddhartha. She noticed the late-night walks, him staring at the stars for hours, the long silences, the deep questions he started asking about suffering.
The existential angst was showing.
Exactly. She
Yeah.
could feel this restlessness growing in him, this buildup towards something big, though nobody, not even her, could have guessed just how monumental it would be.
And then came that night, the point of no return.
The pivotal night. She's asleep, peaceful, next to her husband and their baby son.
Right.
According to the Mahavastu, which is a very early text, Siddhartha looks at them one last time sleeping there. Some versions say he almost woke her up. Others say maybe he kissed their foreheads. But ultimately, he chose silence, took his horse, Kanthaka, his attendant, Shana, and just slipped away into the darkness.
Just gone.
Gone. And the morning after, it must have been utter devastation. Yasodhara wakes up, reaches across the bed, it's empty.
My heart just sinks thinking about that.
She calls his name Silence, runs through the palace, asking servants, guards, nobody knows anything. Then the awful truth sinks in. Her husband, father of her child, the future king, vanished without a single word.
The shock, the confusion.
Well,
and the public humiliation too, right, in that kind of society.
Immense. Just immense.
But this is where her story gets really interesting, where her strength just shines.
Absolutely.
Because many people might just collapse in grief, right?
Yeah.
But Yasodhara, she got angry.
Yes. There's this fierce quality that comes through.
He hadn't gone off to war or some royal duty. He just abandoned them, his son, his people, everything they built together, with no explanation anyone could understand at that point.
And think about the impact beyond her personal feelings. The whole palace starts whispering. Neighboring kingdoms are wondering, was he captured? Did he go mad? Is he just weak?
All eyes are on her.
Exactly. And she's left there, holding baby Rahula, facing the judgment of a society that back then, in ancient India, often pointed fingers at the wife when a husband disappeared like that.
Especially a royal wife whose husband was the heir.
Precisely. Being a single mother, especially a royal one under those circumstances, it wasn't easy. The scrutiny would have been unbearable.
So what did she do? Did she hide away?
No, that's the incredible part. She didn't hide in shame. Sources suggest she held her head high. She focused on raising Rahula alone.
Wow.
And years went by. 3, 4, 5 years. No letters, no messages, nothing to even confirm he was still alive.
With silence.
Just silence. The woman who seemed to have everything suddenly had to rebuild her entire life, her entire world, completely from scratch, by herself.
That resilience is staggering.
And it's during those incredibly difficult years, those years of abandonment, that something else starts happening within her.
A shift.
A profound shift. All that palace luxury, the gold, the servants, the rituals, it started to feel hollow, empty, meaningless.
Understandable.
Her personal pain, her struggle actually became the seed of her own spiritual journey. She began visiting temples, not just because it was expected of royalty, but genuinely searching, looking for answers, for something real that could explain why her perfect life had just shattered.
Searching for meaning in the wreckage.
Exactly. Seeking something that could help her understand the loss and maybe find a way forward.
And then eventually news starts to filter back, right?
Slowly, yes. Whispers at first. Merchants traveling through the region would bring these strange stories, tales of a wandering teacher near Bodh Gaya.
A holy man.
Right, someone talking about suffering, liberation, someone who seemed maybe familiar. At first, Yasodhara probably dismissed them. India was full of holy men, wandering ascetics. Why would this one be him?
Too many false hopes, maybe?
Possibly, but something inside her had changed during those years alone. She was different now.
Ready to hear something new.
Perhaps. And then the definitive moment arrives. A traveling monk comes to the palace.
Okay.
And he speaks of this incredible teacher called the Buddha, the awakened one, someone who discovered the root cause of all suffering and the way to end it.
The big news.
Huge news. And then the monk describes this Buddha's background, a prince from the Shakya clan named Siddhartha Gautama, who had left his family years ago.
Oh my God, that moment.
Can you imagine? Her blood must have run cold. Her missing husband, the man who left her without a word, was now the most famous spiritual teacher in the entire region.
The mix of emotions. Relief, surely, that he's alive.
Relief, definitely. But then probably a fresh wave of anger, confusion. How could he?
And then maybe curiosity.
Yes, that's the surprising part. A deep, powerful curiosity about what he'd found, what had changed him so profoundly.
So does he come back?
He does. The Vinaya Pitaka, one of the core Buddhist scriptures, tells us that 6 years after his enlightenment, the Buddha decided to return to his home city, Kapilavastu.
Back to the palace ground.
Back to where it all began. And Yasodhara hears the news. The The whole kingdom is buzzing, servants are rushing around, the king is planning this huge welcome ceremony. Everyone's thrilled.
Except maybe her.
Exactly, everyone except Yasodhara. She makes this incredibly bold decision. She stays in her rooms in the palace.
She doesn't run out to meet him.
No, she's not going to rush out like nothing happened, like those 6 years of silence didn't matter. Her stance was clear. If he wants to see me, he can come to me.
Wow. Standing her ground.
Completely. So hours pass. The celebrations are probably happening outside. Then finally, footsteps approach her chambers.
The reunion.
The reunion. The man who walks in. He looks like Siddhartha, but he's different. There's a calmness, a presence. His eyes have this new depth. And he's wearing simple saffron robes, not royal silks.
Must have been incredibly intense.
The texts, maybe frustratingly for us, skip over the really personal details of that conversation. But you can just feel the weight of that moment, years apart. Two people utterly transformed.
He found enlightenment by leaving everything.
And she found strength, resilience, maybe the beginnings of her own wisdom by staying, by rebuilding.
Both transformed, but through such opposite experiences.
Polar opposite paths leading to this extraordinary meeting.
And their son Rahula, he must have been there too.
He was. By this time, he's about 7 years old. He meets his father for the first time since he was basically a baby.
That's it, yeah. A whole other story.
It really is an incredible story in its own right. Definitely something for a future deep dive.
Okay, noted. But the real shocker, the next big turning point, came after that private reunion, didn't it?
It did. After they spoke, Yasodhara made an announcement that must have just stunned the entire royal court.
What was it?
She declared that she wanted to join the sangha, the community of Buddhist monks and practitioners.
To become ordained.
Yes. But crucially, not just to follow him, her former husband, but to follow her own path to enlightenment, to seek liberation for herself.
Okay, that is huge, especially back then.
Absolutely revolutionary for 500 BCE India, and initially the Buddha actually refused her request.
Refused? Why? Did he doubt her?
It seems it wasn't about doubting her capability. The issue was the structure of the sangha itself. At that point, it was exclusively male, just monks, no women allowed. That was the rule, the tradition.
The societal norms of the time.
Exactly. But Yasodhara wasn't someone who took no for an answer when it mattered, especially not now.
I'm sensing a pattern here.
Definitely. She didn't give up. She teamed up with Mahapajapati Gautami, who is actually the Buddha's stepmother and foster mother, and a whole group of other determined royal women who also wanted to ordain.
Strength in numbers.
They approached the Buddha together, again and again, patiently, respectfully, but persistently asking for inclusion.
And he still said no.
Initially, yes. So they did something truly radical, unprecedented.
What did they do?
These women, former princesses, queens, noble women, they shaved their heads, put on simple yellow robes like the monks, and just showed up at the monastery.
They just walked in?
Well, they walked to the monastery gates. Imagine that scene. Royal women, self-ordained in a sense, standing there, silently demanding equal access to spiritual practice in front of an all-male religious institution.
That takes incredible courage. A massive act of protest.
It was a powerful, peaceful, but undeniable challenge to the status quo.
So did it work?
Finally, yes. According to the texts, after his close attendant and cousin Ananda advocated strongly on their behalf, the Buddha relented. He agreed to establish the Bhikkhuni Sangha, the order of Buddhist nuns.
Wow. So they literally opened the door for women in Buddhism.
They did, and Yasodhara became one of the very first women ever officially ordained in the Buddhist tradition she helped to shape.
An amazing moment. But her story doesn't end with just getting ordained, right?
Yeah, not at all. Her journey was far from over. There's this incredible collection of poems, the Therigatha, verses by early Buddhist nuns.
I've heard of that.
Yasodhara has verses in there. And her words are so powerful. She says something like, I have cut off my hair, I have put on the yellow robe, I live by alms. Having been a woman of great beauty, now I am free from attachment.
Free from attachment, not just to beauty, but to everything.
Exactly. She wasn't celebrating becoming a nun just to be near Siddhartha again. She was celebrating her freedom. Freedom from beauty, marriage, status, royal privilege, everything that had once defined her. It was about her own liberation.
That's a profound shift in identity.
Completely. And she went on to develop her own teaching style, her own deep insights. She attracted her own following, particularly helping other women.
What was her focus?
She became known for helping women understand that spiritual awakening didn't mean you had to suffer in silence or deny your pain. She taught that difficult experiences like pain, abandonment, betrayal, they weren't roadblocks to enlightenment.
But pathways.
Exactly, gateways. Opportunities to understand the impermanent nature of everything, relationships, circumstances, even our own identities. Using the hardship as fuel.
Turning poison into medicine, as they say in some traditions.
Precisely that idea, and some traditions go even further. They state that Yasodhara attained full arahantship, the same state of complete liberation, complete enlightenment as the Buddha himself.
The same level.
The same level. She was particularly noted for her incredible memory of past lives, her supernormal powers, as the texts call them. The Buddha himself reportedly declared her the foremost, the Etadaga, among his female disciples with these abilities.
So, the woman once defined only as the Buddha's wife became
Yasodhara, the enlightened, a powerful spiritual figure in her own right. She lived a long life as a respected teacher, passing away at 78, just 2 years before the Buddha himself entered his final nirvana.
What an incredible arc. Yeah. So, why? Why don't we hear this story more often? Why isn't she right up there alongside the Buddha in every introduction to Buddhism?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer is, well, it's kind of stark.
History being written by the victors. Or the monks.
Essentially, yes. Early Buddhist texts were passed down orally for a long time, mostly by monks. Then they were written down mostly by male scholars. Interpreted for centuries through largely male-dominated religious institutions.
So women's stories got sidelined.
They often got simplified, minimized, or sometimes just erased. The official narrative became very streamlined. Buddha left his wife and child for enlightenment, the end. Her pain, a footnote. Her spiritual achievements, secondary, if mentioned at all, even when earlier texts hinted at much more.
And you see this pattern elsewhere too, right? Across different religions and histories.
Tragically, yes. You have to ask, how many female disciples vanished from early Christian accounts? How many women mystics were downplayed in Islamic traditions? How many Hindu female sages were largely forgotten? It's a recurring theme.
It really makes you wonder.
But the good news is that this is changing. Recent scholarship, especially work by Buddhist feminists and historians, is actively uncovering these voices.
How are they doing that?
By digging deeper into texts like the Theragatha, re-examining archaeological finds, questioning those long-held traditional interpretations. And what they're finding is fascinating.
What's emerging?
Evidence that early Buddhism actually had significantly more female leadership and participation than the later, more patriarchal narratives suggest. Women weren't just followers, they were innovators, teachers, enlightened beings, creating their own paths, often against considerable resistance.
So Yasodhara wasn't just an exception.
She was exceptional, absolutely. But maybe not entirely unique in terms of female spiritual achievement, just uniquely positioned in the central story. What makes her story so powerful is how she turned that intense personal suffering, abandonment, public shame into universal wisdom.
And broke down massive gender barriers in the process.
Huge barriers for millennia. She proved that enlightenment doesn't always mean running away from your life. Sometimes it means transforming how you live it, how you carry your responsibilities.
That's a really different model of awakening.
It is. And it makes you ask, how many other Yasodharas are out there in history? Women who turned pain into power, abandonment into awakening, silence into strength, whose stories got buried because they didn't fit the preferred narrative.
It's a powerful thought.
Buddhism fundamentally teaches that everyone, regardless of gender, status, background, has Buddha nature. Everyone has the potential for enlightenment.
And Yasodhara is living proof of that principle.
Absolutely. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't need her husband's guidance ultimately to find her own truth. She used what she had, her intelligence, her fierce determination, and the courage to turn suffering itself into wisdom.
So we've kind of reached the end of this deep dive, but it feels more like a beginning in a way.
It really does. Her story resonates so much today.
It teaches us so much about resilience, doesn't it? About transformation, about refusing to let someone else's choices dictate your worth or your path.
She didn't wait around hoping he'd come back and rescue her. She didn't let bitterness consume her for decades. She didn't define her entire existence through his spiritual quest.
No, she forged her own.
She took the absolute worst moments being left, the public shame, the struggle of single motherhood, and used that raw, painful material to build her enlightenment.
Like an alchemist.
Exactly. Modern psychology might call it post-traumatic growth. Buddhism calls it transforming suffering into wisdom. Yasodhara, she probably just called it, living her life, getting on with it.
Yeah. And her story gives us this alternative model of spiritual life, right? Not always the dramatic, leave everything behind model.
But the patient, steady, profound transformation of everything you have, not escaping responsibility, but embracing it with wisdom, with enlightenment.
She's a teacher, a leader, a pioneer, and a mother.
Proving you don't necessarily have to choose between your own growth and caring for others or fulfilling your duties. You can integrate them.
So the woman history almost forgot.
The voice patriarchy tried to mute.
The story that got minimized.
Turns out to be one of the most potent examples of enlightenment we actually have. It completely reframes things.
So maybe the message for us, for you listening, is when life throws you into darkness, when you feel abandoned. Remember Yasodhara.
That abandonment doesn't have to be your ending. That suffering isn't your whole identity. That pain doesn't have to be a prison.
They could be your teachers.
If you're brave enough to listen and learn from them.
Maybe the real question isn't just about what Buddhism would look like with more women's voices heard, though that's important.
Maybe the deeper question is, what would your life look like if you stopped waiting for someone else's permission to transform, to find your own path?
That's a powerful thought to leave people with.
And speaking of transformation and family ties...
Yes, you mentioned Rahula.
Their son, Rahula. His own story is incredible, meeting his enlightened father for the first time, asking for his inheritance, and eventually becoming the youngest monk in Buddhist history.
Okay, definitely need that deep dive soon.
It's coming.
All right, until then, stay curious, stay wise, and remember your story. It isn't over. It's still being written.